2023 really gave us some memorable moments in boxing. We had Tank versus Ryan Garcia as one of them, Canelo versus Charlo, Crawford and Spence even.
Boxing right now is going through a developmental stage. Showtime is gone. Now it looks like Amazon might be a big player now. Saudi Arabia might be a big player now.
It was a historic moment as well. I mean, we got, for the first time in history, a two-time undisputed champion. Naya Inoue and Terrence Crawford both achieved history this year. To stamp the end of the year, we decided to do a little award show.
We're going to start right off the bat, Fighter of the Year. Going on to the next category, we go to a KO of the Year. And the KO of the Year has to go to... We are here at our final category. And this final category is Worst Fight of the Year. And I think there's no doubt in our minds. Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Last Round Podcast. You got me, Pablo.
You got me, Rulo.
You got me, Asael.
And let's talk some boxing. Now, this is the final podcast of the year. 2023 really gave us some memorable moments in boxing overall. We had some big fights. We had, Tank versus Ryan Garcia as one of them. Canelo versus Charlo. Crawford and Spence even. A lot of these fights that have been, brewing or marinating for years finally came into fruition this year. And I don't know. I think 2023 for boxing this year was pretty big and one of the biggest ones that we've had in a while. Do you guys agree with that?
I definitely believe so. I think boxing as a whole has been kind of dying down. I feel like a lot of, there's been a lot of hate towards it. A lot of people talking down on boxing. And it's true, boxing these past couple years hasn't really been the best. But I feel 2023 was a turn. I think that it was a swift change and big fights were actually being made. And we got a lot of, like you said, memorable moments in 2023. And personally, it was one of my favorite years in recent times. So I'm just happy, we got, as a boxing fan, we got to see a lot more fights happen. And, seeing the sport, actually become better and continue to improve is good to see.
Yeah, 2023 was an interesting year for boxing. There was the good and the bad. The good, we saw a lot of fights that the fans wanted to see. We got a lot of undisputed fights. We got fights that we just assumed that was never going to happen. It was always the question of what if, Crawford, Spence, you got Ryan Garcia taking risks, and it looks like going into 2024, he's going to continue to take risks. But not only that, but also we had to say goodbye to Showtime as well. That's another thing. I think boxing right now is going through a developmental stage right now at this point in time. Showtime is gone. Now it looks like Amazon might be a big player now. So Saudi Arabia might be a big player now within the boxing scene. So it's going to be interesting to see what 2024 has to bring.
Yeah, it was a historic moment as well. I mean, we got, for the first time in history, a two-time undisputed champion. Two fighters, Naya Inoue and Terrence Crawford both achieved history this year. It's been a very historic year, I believe, for 2023. Sad to see it go, but excited to see the future for 2024. And like you said, with the new networks being introduced, I believe that boxing will only continue to keep on getting better and better in 2024.
It's going to get better and better, and I think the fans should be very excited because it seems as though because boxing is going through some type of transitional phase, it looks like the fans are going to get the fights that we really want to see. We got, as I mentioned, Ryan Garcia possibly fighting against Haney. If it's not Haney, maybe Rolly as well. And then you got some of these other weight classes like the heavyweights who are just bound to clash. It looks like we might have AJ versus Tyson Fury if, they're both successful in their next fight. So it's going to be very interesting to see.
Well, to stamp the end of the year, we decided to do a little award show.
Yes, we did. Let's
go. Award show. Yeah. Little our opinions for fighter of the year, performance of the year, all this sort of stuff. So let's begin, no?
Let's kick it off. Yeah. So first category, we're gonna start right off the bat. Fighter of the year. Now we analyzed data. We went thoroughly into everyone's resume this year. Yeah, we crunched the numbers in the calculators, and we had a lot of good candidates for Fighter of the Year this year. But the number one the number one Fighter of the Year for 2023 has to be Naoya Inoue. Yeah. Now, this man went up to 122, challenged the champion, supposedly the best one at that weight class, and not only beat him, but dominated him and stopped him. And then what happens later? He goes and fights against the next champion, to unify and to become undisputed, Marlon Tapales, and he stops him as well. So, in our opinions, Naoya Inoue was our fighter of the year. What are you guys' thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, to conquer a division in only 2 fights, I feel is unheard of. I mean, this stuff rarely happens. And even just to unify titles, I feel like boxing politics always gets in the way. But that didn't stop Naoya Inoue from, fighting in Japan, getting these big fights made, and conquering a division, the 122 division, in just 2 fights. I think that in and of itself deserves Fighter of the Year.
Yeah, not only that, but you got to look at the way he performed. Both of those fights, it was on a big stage. The light was really bright, and yet he stopped his opponents. He made him look like they're not even on his level. Like, it looked like there was such a big disparity between the two, and it's kind of hard not to give it to him. You know what I'm saying? I know there's other fighters who, you fight once, you have a good fight, and then the next fight, it's like kind of iffy. Nah, when Inoue comes to the ring, he comes to bring it. He comes at 110% and even ready to give even a lot more. So for us, there was no doubt in our mind that he deserves that award.
Yeah, one of the things that stamps a great fighter is making good fighters, good world champions, seem ordinary. And that's what Naoya Inoue did in 2023 at a higher division than his own. So congrats off to him.
Yeah, Inoue, fighter of the year, but that doesn't, discredit any other fighter that performed well this year. For example, Terrence Crawford, who many have him as the fighter of the year, because he had that legendary, or not legendary, but that huge fight against Earl Spence back in July, and absolutely decimated the man. And many would claim that performance was enough to win him fighter of the year. But I mean, we got to look at the accomplishments that was done. Inoue had a pretty active year, fought 2 times, 2 big fights, like we said, and performed above expectations, I feel. So without a doubt, Naoya Inoue is our 2023 Fighter of the Year.
What about some honorable mentions?
Some honorable mentions, we had Crawford, of course. I think he falls rightfully so number 2.
Yeah, very close battle.
Yeah, very close battle. It was between them. But number 3, I feel like another honorable mention would have been Devin Haney. He had that great fight, or not great, or it was a great fight overall against Lomachenko. Close fight. People, have their thoughts and opinions about the outcome of that fight. Regardless, that was a great chess tactical type of fight. I really enjoyed it. But he came back and fought Prograis at 140, made his debut at that weight, and dominated. He 120'd. He swept the champion at that weight class, which is insane. It's unheard of also, to pull up a performance like that. So he was one of our candidates, as well as we had David Benavidez coming off a win against Caleb Plant and Demetrius Andrade. And lastly, we have kind of like a somewhat, I feel, underrated performance of the year, or fighter of the year, which was Leigh Wood from the UK. He got stopped by Bronco Lara back in February, and then came back in a rematch and dominated him, and then went off and beat Josh Warrington. So I feel he had a really good year. I think it's overlooked based off these other fighters who had even greater, a greater year. But regardless, I think Leigh Wood was a good, strong candidate for Fighter of the Year.
Yeah, all these guys, they accomplished many things in 2023, and especially the top 2, Terrence Crawford and Naoya Inoue. It was between those two. They were having a battle to who was going to win Fighter of the Year. So all of these fighters, performed great in 2023. I'm excited for all their futures in 2024. But I think Naoya Inoue stamped it.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's no question in my mind, for sure. Any other honorable mentions that you guys can think of off the top of your head? No.
I think that was it, yeah.
Logan Paul, maybe? Just kidding.
Came back to boxing from WWE and pulled off a stunning performance.
He neutralized Dylan Dennis, I suppose. So yes, that was our Fighter of the Year. Going on to the next category, we go to a KO of the Year. And the KO of the year has to go to Nakatani. His brutalizing KO over Maloney earlier this year. This was a devastating one-punch knockout. Folded him like a lawn chair. It was insane. Regardless, many people believe that the fight should have been stopped earlier. which I do agree to some extent. I think I mean, actually, I do agree with that. He was getting a beating throughout
He
the
was
fight,
getting a beating.
but that knockout was devastating. Which is why it wins our knockout of the year for 2023.
Yeah, the whole fight was actually a very entertaining fight, and Nakatani definitely showed up, and he beat down a very respectable world champion contender. I don't believe Maloney was a world champion. I could be wrong, but
I think he was.
he could have been a world
Yeah.
actually either contender or world champion. But to beat him down just like that and then get the KO in the 12th round, oh my gosh, it was a spectacular KO, completely folded him, and yeah, Maloney was out for the count. And yeah, I think that definitely deserves not KO of the year.
Yeah, the ref could have counted into like a minute, and I think he could have still been laying on
He
the
would have
canvas.
still been on the ground, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a reason why he's our number one pick. This happened on the first half of 2023, and it remained. Like, I if I'm not mistaken, I saw a post, social media post on ESPN saying that I think when it was like halfway through the year, they said, "Oh, this is our KO of the year contender for like half of the year," and to us, like, or to us, it still is. There's a lot. He basically, like, it's like that one meme. He folded him like an omelet. He with the one shot coming in, he clipped him, and then he was done.
Yeah, definitely. What are some honorable mentions?
Some honorable mentions. We had the most recent one, Rayo Valenzuela KOing Chris Colbert. Devastating way. Face first down in the canvas, in between the ropes too. That one was crazy.
Yeah, out cold. Too.
Out cold. Yeah. We also had Mendoza versus Fundora, which was a quick 2-piece punch after he rocked him.
The towering Inferno went down.
He went down, and he couldn't get up. He couldn't get up. We also had Maxayo versus Isaac, or El Canelito. That one happened recently too. That one happened recently, and that one was crazy. That one was crazy. He made him fall like a sack of potatoes. He absolutely destroyed him. And we also had the Big Bang's
Zile
Zhang versus Joe Joyce in the rematch. Quick 2-piece combination. Set him out there, man.
Zhang showed that he is better than Joe Joyce, and the first fight was not a fluke.
No, it was not a fluke. He really showcased that. So, yeah, those were our honorable mentions, but they fell short to our Nakatani versus Maloney KO of the year. Now, moving forward, we have our next category, which is round of the year. And honestly, I think we got to agree, man. Foster versus Rocky Hernandez, round 11, won our round of the year. Now, this one was insane, because first off, the fight was competitive back and forth in Mexico, in Rocky Hernandez's hometown, in this place. This round 11, Foster came in and rocked him. He hurt him bad. He had Rocky hurt. He had him going backwards, and he was letting some big punches go by. But then Rocky just turns it around. He catches him with a quick counter and hurts Rocky, and then he starts going at it, and then both start going and throwing fists. It was crazy. So that easily wins, in my opinion, round of the year.
Yeah, with those rounds, I mean, it's all depends on that back and forth action, and that's what round 11 had for Rocky versus Foster. Foster hurt him bad, and then Rocky hurt Foster bad. So just the competitiveness and just not knowing, boxing is so unpredictable. And when stuff like that happens, that creates such a memorable round for boxing. And without a doubt, that was definitely round of the year.
Yeah, I'm kind of jealous that I wasn't there to watch it live, because context before, they were just going back and forth, and then out of nowhere, 11th round, you have Foster turning it up and hurting Rocky, and he's hurt. Rocky goes to the ropes, back on the ropes, and out of nowhere, he just lets a right hand go and hits Foster. Foster immediately hurt, and then he starts going back, and then you can just hear the crowd just erupting and roaring, for the Mexican champion or fighter. And it's such a good fight. You can tune in just that 11th round, or you could just watch the whole fight and still be entertained once you get to the 11th round. It's so good.
Definitely.
But yeah, an honorable mention would have been the Ramirez versus Espinosa, the final round, which was high action. The whole fight was high action. We're gonna talk about that too next up. But overall, I think there's a big consensus or agreement that this Foster and Rocky Hernandez round 11 was round of the year for sure. That was action packed. It was exhilarating. It gave, if you showed it to a casual fan, they'd be like, "Yo, this is crazy,"
It just had you on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, exactly. So, which is why it's our rightful winner of round of the year 2023. Going up next is our fight of the year for this year. And our winner for fight of the year 2023 has to be Espinosa versus Ramirez. Now, this is a fight that, it happened on the same day as Devin Haney versus Pro Grace. So, if you were, a more, I guess, casual or you wanted to look at greatness, you kind of had to go watch Devin Haney, right? Because it happened at the same time, which was our biggest mistake that we did. We were only able to catch it live after the fight, but we rewatched and everything, and this fight delivered. This fight was insane. It showcased a very big underdog in Espinosa going up against an Olympian champion at 126 and showcasing that he has grit and he's got that Mexican ferocity. And he pulled off the upset in a very exhilarating, action-packed fight. What are you guys' thoughts about that one?
Yeah, the thing I loved most about this fight was the clash of styles. Espinoza is 6 feet, and he throws like 100 punches every round. He's an extremely active fighter, but the complete opposite, Robeisy Ramirez, is a much more calculated, much more counter punch style, and it was so interesting to see Espinoza throwing so many punches, barrages of punches, and eventually breaking down the counter punches of Robeisy, because Robeisy at the first half of the fight, it was really his fight. He was, with his speed and with his accuracy, with his technicality, he was able to outmaneuver Espinoza. But Espinoza, he really showed his Mexican heart. He stayed in the fight, and eventually dropping him in the 12th round. I mean, this fight had it all.
Yeah, I mean, especially Robeisy dropping Ramirez in the 4th round. It looked like it was kind of over. It looked like, it's going to be another Robeisy win/victory. He's going to defend his title, especially fighting in a second hometown of Florida. There's a lot of Cubans there. I know he packed that place. Espinoza had different things in mind, like relatively unknown fighter within the boxing world, and he surprised everyone, really. Most importantly, Robeisy. Like, I had no idea this guy's he's interesting. He's 6 foot, 126 pounds, and likes to fight within close range. Has no is not scared to get in there and bang. And he showed his grit, he showed his heart, and he showed that he's a warrior, and he came out with the victory. He was down, I would say, in the first half, and in the second half, he just turned it up even more. And then just the cherry on top, 12th final round, he's able to hurt Robeisy. He stays on his ass, and then he drops him, and then the fight is over. And then they raise his hand in victory. It's such a good fight. Even the casual can tune in and watch that and will be on the edge of their seat.
Exactly.
But yeah, crazy fight. But there are some big candidates for that fight of the year. We had the tactic. If you were trying to look for a more tactical, chess type of fight, Lomachenko versus Devin Haney is definitely up there. It's probably the most entertaining fight in that category, in that aspect.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people had that as their fight of the year.
It was a good fight.
It was a good fight.
It was a really good fight. It showed, a Lomachenko, a 35-year-old Lomachenko going up against a young, in his prime, Devin Haney, and it showed that he still got it. People were really overshadowing Lomachenko, saying his age is catching up, he's old, he's worn out. But he showed that he can still compete at a high elite level, which is why people, are also very sour at the fact that he lost, because they were like, it would have been a great, moment seeing 35-year-old Lomachenko become undisputed at 135, which would have been a great achievement.
That would have been very true, because it was, I think, for Loma's mind, it was one of the last shots he had at undisputed, and we all know that was one of his dreams. He definitely brought out the best in him. He gave it his all, and Devin Haney also, he has such a strong mentality for being so young. He was not afraid of Lomachenko. It definitely showed, and that's what led to a great fight.
So yeah, that fight, great fight overall. People really claimed that it was fight of the year. But we had some other ones. We had like Valdez, Oscar Valdez versus El Vaquero Navarrete, which was action-packed Mexican showdown. You even had with Morales
And Barrera.
and Barrera there at ringside watching the fight,
sitting right next to each other.
yeah, it was right next to each other. They're trying to really spice it up, try to milk this Mexican showdown dry top rank. But that was a great fight too. But Navarrete threw over 1,000 punches that fight. Over 1,000 punches. He drowned Oscar, but he went through grit. He suffered an injury in his right hand, and it was really telling throughout the fight that he was hurt. But he still kept going and really brought out a very great fight. Over in Top Rank this year. But we also had Caleb Plant versus David Benavidez as a contender as well. It happened earlier this year, so some people, when good fights happen earlier in the year, people tend to forget
about them.
Yeah, which is a shame. But that was a great fight, because Caleb Plant was definitely winning that fight. But then second half of the fight begins, and David Benavidez turns it up and tried to take him out, But Caleb Plant showed that he's a big warrior, man. He's a tough guy, and was able to stand and keep standing until the final bell. So. Great fight that one was.
Yeah, David Benavidez' style is so fun to watch, man, because, once he gets his engine started, no one can stop him, So Plant was doing an amazing job sticking with the jab, lateral movements, what he does best, But David Benavidez eventually is able to break him down, and those last few rounds were so fun to watch because you really felt that at any moment David Benavidez could knock out Caleb Plant.
Yeah.
But Caleb Plant showed his heart, showed his grit, and stayed in the fight. So action-packed fight for sure.
Yes. And lastly, another contender, which was number 2 in our list, was Luis Neri versus Azat Havanesian. There you go. Or Crazy 8. Crazy 8. Yeah, that fight. If you want to watch some rock and sock and boxing, just tune into that fight. Put it to any casual viewer, and they will be entertaining because these two 122-pounders went at it. It was insane. That fight was going crazy. I remember watching it live. I was like, yo, what's going on, man? I didn't know what was going on. Just so much going on. But yeah, so that was our fight of the year, which was Espinosa versus Ramirez. Next up in our list for our awards is Upset of the Year for 2023. And our Upset of the Year for 2023 is Espinosa versus Ramirez. Again, like we mentioned earlier, Ramirez came in as a huge underdog, relatively unknown. He was undefeated, but he brought everything to the table. He brought his heart, he brought his will, he brought his style, and he really showcased who he was to the boxing world. And he did it in the biggest stage of his career against the biggest opponent or the strongest opponent of his career, the best opponent of his career, which was El Tren Ramirez. And he really, he lost me money, first of all. I bet against him, so he lost a lot of people money, But if you decided to throw like a $5-10 on Espinosa that night, then you probably made a good amount of money back, So yes, that was our upset of the year. What are your guys' thoughts about that?
Yeah, this was definitely not in the agenda for Robesi Ramirez. He is a 2-time gold medalist, and he is a world champion. This fight was for him to win. And Espinosa, like you said, was unknown. He was relatively unknown. No one really knew that much about him. And for him to just come in and take Ramirez's shots, stay in the fight, and eventually break down Ramirez and drop him in the 12th. It's crazy to see. That's what boxing's all about. I'm sure everyone lost a lot of people money, because it's one of those fights where the unknown fighter beats the well-accomplished fighter with accolades behind it in their background. But no, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, Espinosa showed that he can hang with the two-time medalist.
Yeah, and he could probably hang with anyone else as well, because I'm just some of these other champions as well. Like, he could definitely put up a good fight. But the reason why we put him this fight as upset of the year category is because I think it meets a couple of criteria. One is that it was in Robesi's basically second hometown. Florida. It's filled with Cubans. Big underdog, as you stated. I think it was like 1,000 or 1,500 minus underdog. The odds were extremely against him. I think it was his first time also fighting in the United States or something like that. So relatively unknown, and out of nowhere, boom. He beats the guy who is a decorated amateur, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, has been other world champions now, one of them being Shakur and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, it was almost like a no-brainer to really put your money on Robesi. It was a night for him to really shine. And no, it was the complete opposite. No one knew who this guy was. Now everyone knows who this guy is.
Also, they're trying to really build up Robesi to have a showdown with Venao Lopez, to unify the division, since they're both on top rank. So this was a fight for, like you said, for Robesi to show out, win, and then get Venao versus Ramirez, which would have been a great fight regardless. But now we have Espinosa, and Espinosa versus Venao. Now that's a banging fight too. I'm not complaining about the winner. I think we're still gonna get a great fight. For unification at featherweight. But yeah, that was our upset of the year. Some contenders were a more recent one was Joseph Parker versus Deontay Wilder. We also had Mendoza versus Fundora. We have one a forgotten one. Liam Smith versus Eubank Jr. Liam Smith was already considered kind of old, this and that, against Eubank, who had, he likes to talk big, saying he's still the guy at 160, he wants these big fights, and he got stopped. So that was a big upset, people weren't really expecting that. And lastly, we had Big Bang Zhang, against Joe Joyce. He really put his name out there as one of the best heavyweights at the moment. So, but regardless of that, Espinosa Ramirez is our upset of the year. Going up next is next category is Performance of the Year 2023, and that has to go for Terrence Crawford versus Spence. There's no doubt in our mind that Terrence Crawford performance is probably one of the best championship performances I've ever seen. Not only from like a casual, if you put it for a casual, they'd be like, oh man, Spence getting his ass whooped, right? But like from a boxing standpoint too, you saw Crawford utilize his skill. He showed his IQ. He showed his technique. He showed his power, and he showed that he was better than Errol Spence in every aspect of the game. And he dominated from the first round all the way to the last round where he stopped him. So without a doubt, this has to be Performance of the Year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, leading up to this fight, when this fight was being made, it was said that it was a 50-50 fight. Everyone was saying, oh, Spence is going to win, or oh, Crawford is going to win. It was really divided. And for when the fight finally arrived, it was crazy to see that Terrence Crawford completely decimated the Errol Spence. He made Errol Spence look like an amateur. And Errol Spence is a unified champion who was hunting down all the other world champions. So it was just crazy to see that Terrence Crawford can pull off such a dominating performance in the highest level, for undisputed at 147, one of the most prestigious weight classes in boxing. And it was just definitely a historic night for 2023. And Terrence Crawford showed that, yeah, he is one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world.
Yeah, he had a really good performance. I mean, if I remember correctly, I only gave one round to Errol Spence, and that was the very first round. And he struggled to pull it off. His face was already getting touched up after the first round. So since then, it was all Crawford. And, he put on a really good performance. Errol just didn't have an answer at all. Like, he couldn't figure out anything. Like, aggression, speed, timing. Crawford had it all on lockdown. And it looked like he took Errol Spence out of the water, really, Big Fish was thirsty. Yeah. So, he basically broke him down little by little, round by round. He dropped him, I think, second, third, fourth? Second. Yeah, second round. And then after that, I just knew it was only a matter of time. And no, Crawford really took his time. I would say you could say he was playing with his food in a sense, because I felt like there were times where he could have stepped that up a little bit, but I think he just wanted to put a picture-perfect performance. And I think that's why he deserves this award.
Definitely. I mean, he stamped it and he made any efforts from Errol Spence seem hopeless. I think that was what was most eye-opening for me in the boxing world, is that Errol Spence had no answer for anything. Terrence Crawford literally looked unbeatable against a unified champion in Errol Spence. So it's just crazy to see. Yeah, Terrence Crawford, hats off to him. He pulled off a historic moment. That victory led him to be in the history books forever as the first two-time undisputed champion in two different weight classes.
Mm-hmm. So easily, I think this was unanimous for us to decide performance of the year, but that doesn't come into the a question that there were other great performances. You know, another big one that happened during that same week was Inoue versus Fulton. Mm-hmm. I remember that happened on Tuesday. You know, it was on a Tuesday, and after that fight, people were saying, "Oh, Inoue was number one pound for pound," and for like 4 or 5 days, Inoue was number one pound for pound in most of the majority boxing fans' eyes until Terrence Crawford gave us that performance. But regardless, that was a big performance from Inoue. We also have Devin Haney versus Prograis, which was another great performance. We also had Canelo versus Charlo. You know, Charlo pulled off I don't know what he did, but Canelo looked incredible. You know, he essentially swept Charlo nearly every single round, you know. So that was also a big performance, and also one that he showed that to silence the critics, you know, showed that he's not out of it, he's not washed up. He still got a gas tank, and then he said that the old Canelo's back. So eager to see what Canelo does in 2024. And also we had Santillán versus Rocha. Now this is one of my personal favorites. I loved watching this fight because Santillán was going up against a Golden Boy fighter, you know, Alexis Rocha, who they're trying to build up as one of the next champions at 147. You know, he's a pretty good fighter, has the good skills, but Santillán pretty much swept him and hurt him, dropped him multiple times, and stopped him. If you want to watch that fight, go watch it. I recommend it. It's really good. And lastly, we had Boots Ennis versus Villa. This happened over the summer, was it? I believe. And this was a big performance that I think is a little underrated based on all these other big performances that were on display this year. But Boots showcased that he is a big problem at 147, and he is probably the future at 147. And he's now champ, so let's see if he can carry email champ. Okay, yeah, whatever. He's still champion, but let's see if he can keep this performance and, you know, bring it with him for the next year. And we are here at our final category. And this final category is worst fight of the year. And I think there's no doubt in our minds. You know, this one won as unanimously as the Spence versus Crawford. Our worst fight of the year 2023 was Shakur Stevenson versus Edwin de los Santos. Now, this fight was super hyped up, right? You know, leading up, people were like, oh, you know, this fight going to be crazy because Edwin can crack. Let's see, you know, Shakur, you know, if he can withstand it and this and that, blah, blah, regardless, right? Day of the fight, night of the fight, Thursday, people, you know, are staying up to watch it on the work day, you know, and Shakur Stevenson gave us a very dreadful performance. Very bad one, and I think it's one that many boxing fans hated him for. You know, he got so much stick afterwards. But what are you guys' thoughts about that?
Yeah, man. I mean, Shakur Stevenson put everyone to sleep on Thursday night, and one telltale sign that the fight was very bad is that I think it was after the 9th round, people started leaving from the arena. Like, it wasn't even worth the time anymore. They spent the money to buy a ticket to watch the master boxer in Shakur Stevenson fight. And what they got was a running track star in Shakur Stevenson, where he did not want to throw any punches. Edwin didn't want to risk anything either. And the whole fight, I don't think they even landed double digits in a single round, which is kind of astonishing. They also broke the record for the least amount of punches landed in a world title fight. So I think every single aspect of this fight screams horrible performance and snooze fest.
Yeah, and I stated it before, like, for Shakur, he wants to be a pay-per-view star. He wants to be in the big fights and stuff like that, and he has the skills to definitely be there to put up a good performance against any other champions or any other contenders and stuff like that. But yeah, the problem was that he just was not entertaining at all. Like, it wasn't as it was marketed, you know? It was a guy who was gonna put on a good performance, and he was just running for the most part. He was very cautious. He didn't want to engage at all with another guy who not only does he have power in both hands, but he was also southpaw, and he has decent, or if not very respectful boxing skills. And Shakur, instead of trying to figure it out, how he usually does, stay in there and stuff like that, no, he decided to use his legs.
He decided to run. Let's keep it a buck.
Yeah.
Decided to run.
Because he was hurt, man.
Because he was hurt or whatever. But nah, yeah. I would say if I had to compare this fight, I would compare it to the Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather fight. It was so hyped up. The marketing was there. You had Mark Wahlberg and some other guy picking their fighter, and then it just did not deliver. Same thing. It just did not deliver.
Yeah, I mean, it was just Shakur Stevenson. It seemed he didn't even want to be there. I mean, it seemed he didn't even want to fight. He didn't seem like it. They both really seemed. It was more of a sparring match. Like, I wouldn't be if I were to go to a gym and see a sparring. That's what it seemed like. I would expect something like that. Seemed they weren't even throwing that hard punches. They didn't really want to counter each other. No one really wanted to do anything. So yeah, it was definitely the worst performance of the year. I think the whole boxing community agrees with this as well, because everyone is right now. Shakur's stock is at an all-time low.
Yeah.
People do not want to give him any praise anymore. People do not want to see him anymore. His next fights, I'm pretty sure, if they're not big name fights, they're barely gonna pull in any numbers. So I think this fight for Shakur Stevenson took a big hit for him.
It's crazy how this fight it made him become a world champion, and yet his stock still fell. No one wants to see him fight. Even then, like another champion might not even want to fight him because it's just going to be boring. They know they're not going to get the money. They know that the fights aren't going to be there. They know that the pay-per-view numbers aren't going to be there. So, yeah, honestly, it was a win for Shakur, but at the end of the day, I think it was a loss. Yeah.
Well, he took the award for worst fight of the year. At least he got something from us,
And he did break history.
He did. Well, he did, and then they got broken, and then they got broken, and then it got broken. Regardless of that, we had like two contenders for that fight for worst fight of the year. It had to go into the influencer side, which was the Dildo Dennis versus Logan Paul and the Tommy Fury against KSI. Those were atrocious fights.
Horrendous fights.
For how hype. Okay, that's what you talk about. Hype not living up to the expectations, because this Prime card back in October was supposed to blow everything out the water, the biggest pay-per-view event of the year for boxing, and it showcased a double main event with two big influencers going up against another two big or controversial troll in Dildo Dennis and Tommy Fury, just the Fury name behind him. And they did not deliver. We got a hug fest, and then we got a I don't know what Dildo Dennis was doing.
Yeah, I don't know how you classify a fight like that.
Yeah, I don't know. We got something from Logan Paul. So I think those two were big contenders for worst fight of the year, but it has to go for Shakur and Edwin de los Santos for worst fight of the year. Well, that was all our categories that we had for our award show for this year, for 2023. What are you guys' thoughts about that? Who was your fighter of the year? What was your performance of the year? Who was the worst fight of the year? Let us know down below in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click on our description. You'll find us on social media. We are on X, Instagram, and TikTok. We're active on all accounts. Don't forget to comment on the community post as well and vote on our polls. Let us know what you guys think. This was Pablo.
This was Rula.
This was Asael.
And this is the Last Round Podcast, signing off from the year. Thank you.